to Oral History Project. It's being done on December 1st, 1994. It's an oral history of Annette Piecora. I'm Carol Pohl, who's conducting the interview from the Social Science Department, the sociologist. And it's being done in the President's Suite on the 9th floor. And we'll start now. If you would tell us your name and, when you began at FIT and about your career here.
Okay, my name's Annette Piecora. I started at FIT January 24th, 1977. Gladys Marcus, Dean Gladys Marcus of the Liberal Arts Division, and Jean Ellen Giblin, who was chairperson of the Social Science Department at the time, hired me as their clerical assistant. And I worked for them for about 8 months. Primarily for Gladys, and then also for the social science faculty. And I covered for the science and math department on coffee breaks, which was enjoyable, actually. They're a very nice group of faculty. And was only there about 8 months because the personnel department had an opening for a school floater. And I decided that I thought that would be an interesting position to have, to float around the school, get to know the departments, get to know the school. Because the school had pretty much just really taken off then. All the programs had started up, and the buildings were newly built. And in fact, when I used to first come to work, actually as a temp in the registrar's office, that was truly how I started working for Hilda Weingarten. I've almost forgotten that. So I found out about the place. The connections to the buildings were still not complete, and there was still the scaffolding up with the plastic hanging and the old phone booths. I remember all that. So then I back to when I left Gladys in the social science department. I went to the personnel department. It was then called personnel, and I was going to be the school floater. What happened was this personnel became so busy at the time because of the growth of the college that they needed the floater all the time. So I never got to float out of the department. I started working in personnel, and I started out as the receptionist, but we were so short-handed, we all sort of did everything there. You did the employment, you did the postings, you did the filing. I mean, it was soup to nuts. And then the tenure promotion committee and the curriculum committee, the secretarial help came from a member of the personnel department back then, for some reason I gather because of tenure and promotion. Being a personnel issue. And she one day got up and, I'll never forget it, walked by me as the receptionist and said to me, "I'm going home and I'm not coming back. I quit." And I said goodbye. I did it. Bye. We'll see you. And I went and I told Joyce Jacobson, who was the director of personnel, I said, "Well, she just quit on us." And so the two committees had no one then working for them. And so the faculty, the committees were not happy about this. And there was all this, the reappointments, the student evaluations, the curriculum proposals were just kind of at a standstill. So they asked several people if they'd work on it, several people in the department. Everybody kept saying no. And they asked me, and I said, all right, I'll give it a shot. Why not? So I liked working with the faculty, and I thought, from being in the social science department, I thought, well, it'll give me a chance to get back to the faculty side. And then that's where I met my husband, actually, who also works here, Steve Harrington. He was in the social science department. I should mention that. So I started working for the T&P committee and the curriculum committee, and loved it. At first it was Greek, but immediately loved working with them. It was just terrific. We were a great match, I thought, and I think they thought so too. And then the other committees started asking me to help them on the side. I was doing stuff. I was taking home typewriters, doing stuff at home for them, and it kind of started evolving. And then, what was his name? Textile. He's not here right now. He left. I can't think of his name. He asked me, would I be interested in working for the faculty association if they sort of took me sort of out of the loop in personnel, and I worked for them directly, and I thought, great. So Joe Castelli wrote up a proposal, and this other fellow who was head of the faculty association at the time, curly hair and glasses, from textile development and marketing, and it'll come to me, So I said, sure. So they went to, Janice came on then, and the president, and worked up a proposal, and I was taken out of personnel, and I was put under Janice, and we created the Faculty Services Department, and to service the faculty, which is what we did. And it was all the committees and the student evaluations and a lot of the contract provisions, because a lot of the tenure and promotion provisions are in there, and a lot of the faculty provisions, so it kind of became this place for the faculty to go with questions and on those kinds of matters. And AOP came to us, and it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of hard work, but it was a lot of fun.
AOP is?
Assignment of program. It's the accumulation of the faculty's hours, providing them with their seniority to then pick their courses based on that seniority for their day program, their evening program, as full-timers, as part-timers, or as both if you're full-time and part-time. And Faculty Services still maintains it now. Florence Goldfarb heads it up, and then I started thinking I needed a change. Obviously, I like to move around the college, and so an opening came up in this office as the associate administrator. It had a different title, assistant something, I don't know, it had some other title, and administrative associate, I think it was reversed. And so I spoke with Vicki Barbero, and she interviewed a lot of people, and she hired me, and we worked together for the first 5 years, and that was when Marvin was here for, I think, the first 4 or 4.5 of those 5, Marvin Feldman, and who I miss very much. We all do. And did a wide variety of things, just as the president's office would handle a wide variety of things. Some space handling facilities, a lot of that, space allocation, since Vicki handled that, and some labor management stuff, though not all that much of that then, and letters and memos and all that, problems that came up, and just a real assortment of things. And then Allan Herschfield came on as the new president. Oh, and I started working for the Board of Trustees as the assistant secretary of the college under Marvin. They appointed me, and recently left that, but I'll get to that in a second. And then Allan Herschfield came in, and after a short time, he reallocated the positions in the office, and so now I'm working directly with him, and also working on preparing a distance education program for the college and doing some labor management.
Could you explain distance education?
Well, hopefully, we're hoping to move, as many colleges have, and offering courses from your home that you could take here at FIT. Telecourses, which would be by videotape, or via computer connection, as Mark pointed out before. Mark's the fellow who's behind the camera here. Or via satellite through the SUNY Link connection that we're getting soon. They're giving us some funding to do that, so we're all excited that actually someone's giving us some money instead of taking it away from us. So I'm trying to get that going, and it's a team effort, definitely, and it's a good group of people. Everybody, the deans are on it. Jean Ellen's really been spearheading it with me, and Rob Fornshell, and good group of people. Lane Stone, Cynthia Wellens. And so we're going to hopefully get that off the ground. I definitely think we will. And then I help the president with various assignments. He's put me on a few committees that are working on different things in the college. And it keeps me very busy. I'm planning the holiday party, I tell you, which is the anniversary holiday party. So it's a special party. And Marilyn Zwick, who works with me, who we should probably have stick her head in here, not just be me. So I couldn't do everything I'm doing without her. She's helping me plan this 50th anniversary holiday party, which we're really hoping is going to be something special. And everybody better come, or I'm going to be really upset with them. So, and that's about it. Other than I'm still married to Steve Harrington, who still works here, and
What does he teach?
and he teaches in Carol's department. She's getting a plug in for her department here. Social sciences, he teaches psychology. And it's been pretty good. Never thought I'd stay here that long. In fact, when the temp agency asked me if I wanted to work, they had a job at FIT. I said, "What's FIT?" I'd never heard of the place. And they said it's a college, and I said, "Forget it. I don't want to work in an academic institution. They don't pay enough." But then little did I know how well FIT paid and the benefits, and so I thought, well, it seemed like a good place, and I've stayed ever since, and it's been very good to me. And there's some great people here, and so and that's what's really made me stay. So,
What changes have you seen in terms of the time period that you've been here?
oh boy, what changes have I seen?
New programs that have developed in terms of students or
Oh.
faculty changes, or you've worn a lot of different hats?
Yeah, I certainly have. Boy, changes. That's a good question. I've seen we all have, and we've all, as Mark and I were talking about earlier, how long we've been here, and so we've all seen it happen. I mean, just in terms of new programs. Not that I'm the person who should talk about this. I'm sure other people have, but toy design and graduate studies coming into existence. They didn't exist when I was first here, and just being in the buildings across the street and having human resources over there. I mean, when I first came, everybody was in this side of the street, and people thought we'd never fill it all. And now we're all dying to get a new building. Seeing a new administration come in, as we've all seen recently, pretty much so. I mean, it's pretty much a whole new group for us. And I think we're still working our way through that, and I think hopefully it's going well. I think it's getting better and better. We're adapting to it. It's evolving. We're adapting. I think we've been through a lot as an institution, losing Marvin, and the budget cuts, and kind of hitting us all at the same time. I think was very hard on us, and I think it's taking us some time to kind of come out of that. But I think we are. I think we're starting to build a sense of community, which I think we've lost for a long time, and I don't think it's any one particular person's fault. Certainly not Marvin, certainly not Allan's. I think there's lots of factors that contributed to it, and I think a lot of people here are working to get us back on track with that, because I think most people really care about the institution and would like to see that.
What factors do you think have contributed to loss of community?
I think our rapid growth, I think definitely was a factor. I think we were running to catch up all the time with what we were doing. Just the new curriculum and the curriculum changes and new faculty and more part-time faculty coming on and more part-time staff, and then as new programs would come in, we'd have to bring new staff in, and then the graduate studies, and it just grew like topsy, and it was always this running to catch up. And I think the feeling started to become, I don't think it is so much now, but that we didn't keep pace with our growth. We're always like running behind it to stay up with it. And the faculty have worked, having worked with all the committees, I saw it on a daily basis. We're constantly working to keep up with the change and change the policies or the way things would be run, and to get information out there and to think of new ways of doing things. And the union has worked very hard to also do that and to keep this a good place to work. And the administration has worked hard to do that too. I think it's been over the years a very good team effort for the most part, and hopefully it'll continue to be. I think so far this latest round has gone very well.
Round of negotiations or round?
A gain sharing that's going on now, which is negotiations. Yeah. So I think.
Gain sharing.
Gain sharing is like a win-win, where there's a gain for the employees and there's a gain for the administration or a gain for the college. So, for instance, if you were to give up so many days of, say, vacation, you would get so many days of pay in return for it. So the college would get back your work, they'd get you back as a worker, and you would get the money for it. You wouldn't just lose the days, kind of thing, or the college wouldn't just lose you to the days. That's what the city's come up with this term for a new way of, they asked members of the coalition to, I'm not the one to talk about this either, I'm just on the team, and by far it would be Durwood, Long, and Lou Stoller who should talk about this. But that's going on now, and it's going well, so that's good. I think that sets a nice tone.
Coalition of city agencies you're talking about?
Yeah, there's a labor coalition that FIT is a part of, and the city wants each of these people in the coalition to do this gain sharing. From what I understand, not many people are doing it, but that sounds like the city, so it's not surprising.
In terms of changes, like you mentioned the toy design, how has the change taken place? What role has industry played in the shaping of these programs? And you mentioned the trustees. What role has the trustees played in these kinds of programs?
Well, in any program, the trustees would have to give approval to it being offered, but they probably play, no offense to the trustees, the least significant role in the offering of a new program, in my opinion, or just seeing how it goes through the mill here, through the hierarchy. The industry, obviously, in the toy design, and Judy Ellis should really speak to this, the industry was I think, somewhat of the initiator for that program, and then Judy Ellis, without her, it wouldn't exist, and it's as successful as it is because of her, I think. That was brought in, and she really took it and ran with it and built it up, and the industry has been very supportive of her. The Toy Manufacturers Association, the TMA, they've been with her side by side and building the program, giving the funding, advising on the curriculum. Those courses were written by people from the toy industry and taught by them, and Judy's been selecting the students, and it's been a very close relationship with the industry. As have, I think, in many of the majors, the industry's been an integral part. And I know they all have the advisory boards, which often come through the educational foundation. A lot of the membership to the advisory boards come through the foundation members, is what I understand. I don't really know as much about that. But I know the departments try to work closely with them. And I don't know if you've interviewed Judy Parkus, but she would be the one to, are you going to? She would be the one who, you did, yeah, who would really be able to tell you how that works. She was the curriculum maven of the college for many, many years, having been Marvin's curriculum appointee to the curriculum committee.
And the graduate program did start similar?
Boy, I know Bob Gutman was the one who started that out with Janice and was very involved in Weinman. But whether he was the initiator, I don't know, or I'm not remembering who was the instigator of that. I know Marvin, I'm sure, had something to do with it, and getting the legislation through for us to offer a master's degree program or graduate studies as a community college. But I don't know enough to really tell you about that. And it was such a separate entity at the time also. It really didn't, the faculty association, which was where I got to know all about the curriculum, having worked with the curriculum committee for 12 years, really did not have all that much to do with the development of that program. It was really sort of very separate, and I know just now, over the years, I shouldn't say just now, there's been sort of trying to bring it more into the FIT, the rest of FIT, and the undergraduate faculty having a role in the development of its policies and procedures, and I think that's happening more and more. I think that before it had been separated out, and I don't think that's worked for people. I don't think it's worked for the program. It's just my opinion, but I think that's being worked out.
Any other changes that you've seen?
Well, I've watched people get older. We're all getting older. That's interesting, and people are having children and have started families, and that's fun to see, and it's interesting when you get together with some of them. You talk about how long you've been here, and you think back, and there was just a talent show this week, which was a lot of fun, and hadn't been one for 20 years. I missed the first one. I came in after it, and that made a lot of people think back to the past talent shows, and then different things that have gone on over the years, and how we should do more of that kind of thing. How it's a lot of fun getting together and doing that, and it was. Other changes. We've all seen the number of faculty dwindle, the full-time faculty. And I think when I came, there was and first started working with the faculty committees, there was, I don't know how to put this, in working with the TNP and the curriculum committee, and maybe it was my perspective at the time, maybe that I was so new to it and so new to the college. Not that there was more of an interest, but I think people were in a different place, obviously. I'm not sure how to express it, and so I'm babbling on here, but not that things were taken more seriously, but I think the role was somewhat different. I think maybe it was because it was a smaller group at the time in terms of who were involved, and they were a little more active. I think for a while there we had some problem with keeping the faculty active in some of the committees, or wanting to be chairperson. Some departments, it was a battle to get somebody to become the chairperson. Nobody wanted to do it. When I first came, that didn't really seem to exist as much. And I don't know whether that we've grown as an institution, that it's made things more bureaucratic, things more complicated, so people don't want to deal with them. I can't blame them. That's changed. Things maybe have become more political because we have become larger, and so things become more complicated and therefore more political. And so that's made people shy away from them. There's been a change there. I can't articulate exactly what it is, but I think from seeing faculty less interested at times, it seemed when I first started there, seemed more enthusiasm to become involved in things than I've seen now, or than I've seen over the last many years, not just the last several years.
Have you noticed any changes in terms of students as well?
They're getting younger. We're taking in 10 and 11-year-olds. That's what it looks like to me. We're dating them before they even hit high school. They look so young. And you know what? I was saying this to Steve, my husband, the other day. I was saying it's depressing because they don't get older, the students, really. They stay the same age because they keep coming and going. You see, and we keep staying. So we keep seeing this young group for the most part. I know they keep telling us students are getting older. It's an older population. I don't buy it. Don't they? Aren't you getting that same feeling? You must see it in the classroom all the time, Carol. They're very young, and you watch yourself get older and older.
Referring to us as older and older,
I don't get asked, when I get in the elevator, are you a student? I used to take pleasure in that. Now I'm no one asks me that anymore. And I get called ma'am every once in a while. That's a little depressing. I wouldn't mind not having that happen. No, actually, when I came, it was 1977, so the students were pretty, it wasn't the days of gloves and hats, and probably then they were kind of freewheeling anyway, just that they wore gloves and hats while they did it. I think from what I'm hearing, they're not as well prepared as previous students have been, and our standards have changed, but I don't think we're alone in that. I think that's probably nationwide, if not worldwide. So no, they seem an interesting group. and I know the students that were in the talent show were a lot of fun, and I know the students that are I'm on the Student Faculty Corporation. I left that out. I'm also on that. I'm one of the administrative members. We basically administer funds, that revenue that we get as a corporation from the food services revenue, from the Barnes and Noble's revenue. And there's probably others, but that's, I think, our primary. Oh, and from rental of the college facilities. We then administer those funds. There's 4 administrators, 4 faculty, and 4 students. 3 are voting, one's in each group, and 1 is an alternate for each group. And then we administer funds for different projects that people put in requests for, and like and student activities, where they do the projects, where they have the health, the crafts,
the arts and
crafts center, the craft center. We fund the people who work there. Also, the athletic group, we fund those people, not the phys ed department, but the athletics area, the coaches. The EPA program, for Employee Assistance Program, or EAP. The EAP program, we fund that. We fund, the wellness program, we fund that. So we fund things that the college often is unable to. And then the student contests, we fund those. Frank Noir is the president of it, so he could tell you a lot more than I could. He's been on it many years. I've only been on it 4 now. But the students that serve on it, was what I started to say. They're very, very bright, very interested. A pleasure to work with on the committee. And it's interesting. These students, obviously, are students who are interested. I know they have very busy lives trying to work, do their schoolwork, and do things like student fact corp. Yeah, I like seeing the students. I like being in a community that has that. It's. I see you smiling, Carol. She obviously likes it too. It's different from being in, say, the corporate world, where you don't have that. The atmosphere is very nice, seeing the students and being able to help them. That was one of the first things I missed when I moved to the administrative side of the house. Was, you didn't get to deal with the students anymore, and that was really the fun part about being in an academic office. So. Not that we don't get them up here once in a while with the problem, but usually we're the last resort, so they're usually kind of cranky when they when they get to us. So, but
can you think of something you think should be part of the record of FIT? Some events you've seen, or something, various positions you've seen that should be included in part of the archival industry?
Boy. Well, the first thing that comes to mind is was the dedication of the C building as the Marvin Feldman Center. I don't know if anybody's mentioned that, but this building was dedicated right before Marvin passed away in honor of him. It's the Marvin Feldman Center now, and there was a portrait done of him by Herb Taus, who's one of our illustration faculty, and it's soon to be hung, hopefully, and. So that was a terrific event. I really enjoyed it, and I think a lot of people turned out for it, and I know Marvin did. So I would hope we have photos of it, and so that kind of there's a record of that, which is nice, I think. Other events that should be in there, boy, it's probably a million. But I'm not thinking of them, whatever they are. I'm not, sorry, I'm not.
Everybody has from a different vantage points. I mean, something like the dedication of a building, it's important people forget how these things got named the way they are named.
Yeah, I'm sorry if I had thought ahead of time, I could probably come up with more. But a new president coming and a 5th president, I think that's a major change in a new administration. We've certainly seen that in the last. Allan's Herschfield's been here. This is his 3rd year. We're in the middle of his 3rd year, and he certainly came in at a tough time, budget-wise. And then the new dean's coming in, and Durwood Long, the Vice President for Administration and Finance and Treasurer. That's been a major change for us. And so that's definitely, we haven't seen much of that because, as everyone says around FIT, no one leaves. And we saw this major change go on. And so that's definitely worth noting. I think we've all felt the impact of it. Whether we've wanted to or not, we've all felt it somehow. And the budget cuts. We've all felt those.
Why do you think people don't leave? You're talking about faculty, administrative types, and students do.
Yeah, they're supposed to, right? You know, otherwise we're going to go out of business. Well, I think currently it's a job market. I think it's probably foolish to leave in this job market. But I think what it has been over the years is that it's been a great place to work. I don't think people want to leave. We have it's a nice environment. It's a very nice facility, even though we're in a space crisis for years now. But I think for the most part, even in a space crisis, it's a nice facility. It's well kept. I think the benefits, the college has been very generous to its employees. And I think for the most part it's been, people haven't felt that they're under a thumb, that they've been able to be creative with their positions and to contribute. I think that's been a part of it. I don't think it's just the benefits. I think people have felt that they've been able to give a part of themselves, and that's made them want to stay. And made the place a little bit theirs, kind of. That sounds corny. I don't mean to. I think it's just being in an academic community. I think there's a tendency to stay more so than when you're in the corporate world and look to move around. I think it sort of lends itself to it, the academic environment.
Okay, we're winding down. Is there anything else that you'd like to add to?
No, just that it was a pleasure to do this. I'm flattered to have been asked, and I'd love to have a copy of this, I think. And I'll look forward to seeing it, and thank you very much. And happy 50th anniversary, FIT.
I think it was great. It was very interesting to me.
Oh, thank you.
Really.
I'm sitting here, as I'm talking about how long I've been here, I'm thinking, who would want to hear this?
Each person brings a different perspective. And, you've been in various capacities and you've seen things grow and change. There's things that have interested me is how change occurs here. And that's why I asked you about, how change occurs.
Lou's going to kill me. I didn't even mention all my union work. Oh, God. It just dawned on me.
I'd just like to return to a theme that Edie Sancroft had raised about the role of committee work. And have you been on committees and your committee work? Has it affected your view of FIT and your activities?
Thank you. It definitely has. In all those positions, when I first came in, I joined the union and started working on the staff committee right away, and then after several years, became vice president for staff, even though that was kind of a bumpy road. And it was not an easy job, kind of thankless actually, but fun to be part of the union and administrative team, and also learned an enormous amount. And Lou Stoller and George Levinson was here then. Had a tremendous influence on me, and I learned a lot from them. And being on the executive committee of the union was interesting to work with the other employees in determining how we wanted to move forward on things and things we'd like to see happen for the college and happen for the employees. And for me, it was definitely a real connection with the institution. It was why I joined the union. In fact, my father said, "Don't join the union. They're not big union people." And but I had wanted to be involved, and other than in my position in my job, there was no other way to really get involved for a staff member. Faculty had the committees, but staff didn't, and so I got involved that way. And and enjoyed it, and I learned a lot, and I know the staff, I think, appreciate having or having the opportunity to play that role, to be involved in the union, to be involved in the college that way, because it's the one avenue there for them. And that's been a big part of my life here prior to becoming part of the administration, which I had to leave the union, which was kind of an interesting change for me, having been so involved and then becoming part of the administration. But I treasure my relationship with the people who head the union. They're a terrific group and have done a lot for all of us. That's about it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
It is important because FIT has this unique position of having various groups in the union. It's not just faculty, and it's not just an adjunct. So it's important.
Yeah, it's
information.
unusual in a way.
That's right.
Yeah, it is that we're
So
we're
that
one
really
union
is a
together.
case that's,
Yeah.
That's helpful for understanding why FITs work so well.
Mhm.
It's off. Oh, it's on?
Oh, it's on.
Stop.
Yeah.
Yeah.